I perhaps was the first to understand that this is not going to only be a sari story. In those days, it was not easy at all. If I stop studying textiles, I don't think I'll have a new idea in my head. Sushmita, Aishwarya were both competing for this. And they had a tie, and it just would not stop. It just went on. So I asked them, what do you know of the textile traditions of the country? Sushmita just bumped up and said Gandhi and Khadi and everything else, and she won. We get a very, very wrong impression about the industry from what we read in the page 3s. We are now at the crossroads in this country. Either we save the crafts now, or like the rest of the world, they're going.
She's a legend in her own right, the designer's designer, her label worn by India's who's who. She's even been called the first lady of Indian fashion. But meet Ritu Kumar, and while you see the gloss associated with high fashion, there's a visible connect to ground realities.
I perhaps was the first to understand that this is not going to only be a sari story, because the generation that is coming, me included, wants to wear ready-to-wear easier clothes. So yes, I had started an export house. I had understood a little bit about tailoring clothes and how to put it together. So I translated them into something which was very wearable, very attractive. People loved it. And I didn't even realize what I was doing, frankly. It just happened.
Let me take you back to your exhibition in Calcutta,
Yes.
where you were wanting to promote hand block printed saris, and you had these women clad in French chiffons and, to quote you, yards of pearls.
Yes. In those days, it was not easy at all. Pupul Jaika told me to go to Farrukhabad, and I didn't know where on earth this thing was. And we went there, and it was a little village full of flies. I mean, I couldn't find a single hand block printer or anything remotely like that, but one persevered. So I did a whole study of that Farrukhabad school, then the Jaipur school, and then the Machilipatnam school, and put together about 5 saris from each school, hand block printed. And the exhibition opened. It was at a very prestigious hotel, and all these ladies arrived, very sympathetic and everything, and they were wearing clothes which are totally alien to what I was doing. 2 or maybe 3 of them who were friends, and they were feeling bad about leaving the exhibition without picking up something, bought them, but that was more for sympathy. Really, the whole effort was actually put down that they look like my grandmother's bed covers. But then I realized the mistake I made. Nobody wants to look like your grandmother's bed covers anymore, you know. So I put the same prints onto chiffon and never looked back again. Sushmita, Aishwarya were both competing for this, and they had a tie, and it just would not stop. It just went on. So I asked them, what do you know of the textile traditions of the country? Sushmita just bumped up and said Gandhi and Khadi and everything else, and she won. And I was sitting next day at breakfast with the Danish ambassador, and she said, everything else is fine, but what are these girls wearing? Now, of course, it was a potpourri or whatever they could find, etc. So I was asked I would take over their wardrobes. And I said, yes, but there's one thing that I want to tell you, is that I'm not going to do crystal gowns. You don't need me for that. I'm going to put them into something traditional, something which I feel suits them and which will give them a character. So hence Sushmita went and came back with a crown, and then we photographed her in front of the Taj Mahal wearing a fuchsia sari and salwar kameezes, which the Miss Universe people had never seen or heard of. And thereafter, a whole saga started. If I stop studying textiles, I don't think I'll have a new idea in my head. I'll have to follow what's happening in Paris and say yellow is the color of next year and all that. Hence, I'm not very sold on the word fashion. We use the tools, we use the ramps, we use the photography, we use all the tools that they use. But I think we are telling a different story. And that story really, I think, is a little more about sustainability, slow fashion.
Your son gave up a very lucrative job in a bank to join you. Would it be right to say that he diluted your brand?
Amrish, my son, did not give up a job. He'd gone to do an MBA. And then he came back, and he's always, as a child, come with me to the printing units, to the embroidery units. And he has been interested. So he said he'd like to join. And I said, look, this is a mom-pop shop. I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to take it where you want to take it. But if you do want to do it, give it a try. Yes, there has been a huge generational argument all the time. Sometimes it started with just every design. But I think we've come to a point where we've really agreed on one thing, that if this is not being done through any other agency, the Indian handwriting has to go out from an Indian base through ourselves.
In this crowd of so many names and so many fashion designers, aren't you somewhere lost in the din?
It is a country which is actually very, very rich in a younger generation who still wants to play with fashion, and they are playing with crafts. I don't think there's enough din to worry about that at all. So lost, yes, but I think in some ways it's due to the press. But the reality on the ground is not that. We get a very, very wrong impression about the industry from what we read in the page 3s. And in some ways that's not very good.